Hey there YouTube! So this is my first vlog, so let me introduce myself. My name is Ben Lee and my AKA is Smoke. If you have seen any of the other videos on my channel, you know that I'm a dancer. But I have also done a couple other talks that are about street dance and battling in specific, because that's what I do. So today we're going to just talk about how to start as an all-styles freestyler. Now, there's a difference between starting as an all-styler and starting with one style. And the difference is that it's much more difficult to start with all styles than it is to start with one style. So usually my advice to beginning all-stylers is to start with one or two styles, because otherwise it's just going to be really difficult. It's like trying to learn a language without understanding what language is or what it's for. So that's the first thing that I always want to say, is to pick one. And you can always move on after you've mastered some of the basics, but you really want to understand the basic fundamental movements and the history of the style before you move on and say that you're going to pick up another one. It's just not the easiest thing in the world, and trust me, it's going to make your life a whole bunch easier to have one and then move on. If you're watching this video, you're probably not super advanced in dancing, because if you are super advanced in dancing, I probably look up to you. But one of the things that I'm here to kind of break down is, well, in a world where technology makes it infinitely harder and infinitely easier to learn how to dance, how is it that a new young dancer can come in and compete against the best? The thing that you have to keep in mind is that dance is culturally transmitted information. Dance is truly the physical expression of a culture, particularly a culture's music. And without an understanding of the culture itself, the movements become hollow. There's no real meaning to them because you don't understand why they did them in the first place. The first step is always to learn your history and to learn the anthropologies or the personal histories of the dancers that really pioneered these dances and put them on the map, develop the techniques, and really spread these movements to the world. The second step would be to learn what the foundational movements are. Now, foundation and basics are, they mix a little bit, but foundation is understanding what gives the essence of the dance, as opposed to the basics, which are just the basic movements that make up the dance. An example would be in popping, where to understand really the foundation of popping, you have to understand the funk. You have to understand that it came from funk music, and you have to understand where funk music comes from in terms of soul, and before that with blues and jazz. And you have to understand musical progression for you to understand the essence of why it is that they're approaching the music, even modern music, with that kind of intent, as opposed to just learning the movements of it, which is the pop or the Fresno or the walkout, or any number of movements that you can find already on YouTube. But for you really to understand the basic movements, you need to understand the foundation, which is the essence of what it is to be culturally correct and culturally acceptable by those who are already practitioners and masters of the culture. Now, I'm assuming that if you're watching this video, you're relatively young, that you're watching it because you've either seen one of my TED Talks, or you've seen me battle, or you're just a friend of mine that's wondering why I'm vlogging in the first place. The real difference between the younger generation of dancers and the older generation is that we have literally any style that we want at our fingertips. You could YouTube pretty much every style that exists and you'll find at least some footage. The older generations didn't have the luxury of that, but because of that, they did more with the less that they had. A lot of the younger dancers nowadays are coming up with doing a lot of moves and they know the songs and they know what the judges are looking for, but they aren't really doing more with less. They're actually doing less because it's like that Bruce Lee quote, "Do you fear the man who has practiced the same kick 1,000 times, or do you fear the man that has kicked 1,000 times but practiced each of them only once?" So what you first have to understand is that there's a difference between the styles and the dances. The dances are really actually quite simple. They're like they were all like today's nene or or the whip, or yeet, or shmoney. Those are real dances. The dances are really simple. They're done to simple rhythms, and they're really not very difficult to do at all. But styles are kind of what evolved from the dances. Actually, styles tend to be conglomerations of dances. When you learn foundation of house, or you learn a foundation of hip-hop, or you learn foundation of popping, you actually find out that all of the dances that you thought were under one big stylistic mashed potatoes are actually little bits of different styles put together so that from the end it looks like this big massive style. But in reality, they're a combination of all of the dances that were being done by the cultures and the communities of that time. One of the big examples of that is strutting out in the Bay Area. And those dances were never meant to be seen by anybody that wasn't in those communities. But eventually, everybody wanted to learn where popping came from, and everybody wanted to learn where animation and the robot and the history of these things came from. So they had to come out and they had to explain that these dances were first done as pure dances. Dances that you did at family parties, dances that you were partnered with, or dances that you did with your crew and just solely with your crew. These were a lot of the dances that we do now were made up by dancers that really never thought that anybody else was going to see them. I mean, would you really have been exposed to a nene or a whip if you didn't have Vine or Instagram to show you how fun it was? I really don't think so. And that's because the way that cultures were exposed to each other was not nearly as open and as easily transmitted as they are now. So the first thing that you really need to understand is that the original street dances were all regional. That the dances that we see now on So You Think You Can Dance or America's Best Dance Crew, they all started in different regions, like hip-hop freestyle or breakdancing, which, you know, is a totally incorrect term. You should definitely call it b-boying or b-girling. But those all came from New York and the East Coast. And when you look at house and you look at Chicago footwork and you look at jukin and jitten, you know, the first two come from Chicago and the other two the last two come from the Midwest. And when you look at popping and you look at locking, you see that those dances came from the Bay Area and Fresno and Los Angeles. And when you really understand the dances that way, then you come to understand that each dance carries the regional history with it. And to ignore the regional history is to ignore the context in which these dances were originally formed. Now, nowadays, it's not even close to that. I mean, the true practitioners and the originators of these dances are definitely from those areas, but you can do popping anywhere. You can do Chicago footwork anywhere as long as you're learning from the right person. And that's changed the way that dances are being formed. It's changed the way that dances are being learned and understood. People from the far, from the far Eastern European countries are some of the best b-boys in the world, and they're the ones that are really pushing a lot of different styles. And you see that happen in Asia, you see that happen in Korea, Japan, Taiwan, China, even Indonesia, Malaysia. There's a lot of dancers in the Philippines and that are really pushing the envelope of how these street dances are being understood by the modern world. And the modern world has to include those global areas. And you know, you see it happening in Europe, you see it happening in France, you know, even Denmark, England, Spain, Italy. There's dancers everywhere, in South Africa, in different parts of Africa. There's a lot of great dancers in Canada. There's great dancers coming out from South America, and all of them are doing street dance styles that originated in America. So for the modern dancer, we have to understand that not only do these dances come from regional places, but that the way that they're practiced in different regions of the world has changed their understanding of what these styles' essences are. I mean, going to a house club in France is very different from going to a house club in LA, although I do wish there were more house clubs in LA. So personally, where I'm speaking from is from a distinctly Californian point of view. The upside of being in California is that I've been exposed to all of these styles. Some of the best practitioners of these styles come out and they work out in the industry, they work in LA, and so I've gotten to see a lot of the best dancers, and I've gotten to see a lot of the originators. I've gotten to see a lot of the original strutters. I've gotten to see a lot of the original poppers, and I've met, Don Campbellock, just the inspiration to us all of how to truly be yourself and to make it understood that can change the world, and that you can do what you love and be successful in it, and be successful with it as long as you're working hard enough. And so that's what the main gist for me that street dancing has taught me, and which is why I'm starting these vlogs, is because I want to help all the youth understand that there are levels to what we're doing. The levels that we're exposed to in the beginning superficially are only the outside layer of the greatest, largest onion that you'll ever find. As you go deeper and deeper and deeper, you will understand more about the dances and more about yourself. That's the key, is that these dances were made to understand ourselves. They weren't just made to look cool and to dance with girls and to dance with guys, although you want to dance with girls and dance with guys. That's why you're here. In reality, that's really what these dances are about, was dancing with people. So what I really started this vlog to show was that these dances came from people, and that those people were in specific areas and specific communities, and that by understanding those specific areas and specific communities, you can understand the message of the people. And when you understand the message of the people, you carry now the essence of the dance. And you can do with a few steps what somebody who's learned countless 8 counts of combinations can't ever show. So to all young, all stylers, you have to start with the people. And if you're far away, removed from them, go online, find the interviews, find the names of the originators and the OGs and the people that are really carrying these art in their bones and in their souls and trying to share it with people, and start there, and try and contact them, and contact them in earnestness, and really show that you're there to learn the dance, and that you tried to learn the dance as much as you can before you contacted them. Nobody wants to be contacted being asked basic questions that you can find on YouTube or you can find just by watching people. They want to be asked questions that have shown that the depth of thought and the depth of research and the depth of passion is there, so that your passion can help ignite theirs, even though their passions were the ones that ignited yours. So it's a constant cycle of igniting and sharing, and this is one of the things that people forget nowadays, is that they think it's all about going out and competing, or going out and performing, and going out and doing what they think is really the norm for dancers, when in fact the norm for dancers was to first dance, to dance with people, to impress the people around you so that they could understand your passion, not just for the sake of impression. But I just want to thank you guys for tuning in for my first vlog. As time goes on, these vlogs will get much more specific, so they will be geared towards either for Californians, they will be geared towards the freestyle scene, or the freestyle battling scene, or the choreography scene, or the collegiate scene, or the high school scene, or even the middle school scene nowadays. When I was first at Diamond Bar High School, there was no all-male team, and now we're one of the best all-male squads in the nation, and it's all because of the work of passionate people. And so at the very end of this vlog, I would like to thank the 2 people that really ignited my passion for sharing and teaching this dance. Miss Jana Lindenberg, who's not Miss Jana Lindenberg anymore, she's Mrs. Jana Van Horn, and to Mr. Anthony Teets. Without the 2 of you, I would not be able to do this. I would not be able to share with as much articulation of these dances, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you 2. So I would like to first start by thanking you 2. As time goes on and we cover more styles, I will obviously be naming more names that I've learned from, but I just wanted to start there Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you in the next one.